What would you do if the person you loved most called you up one day and said, "I've sold our house, and I'm divorcing you," with a mocking laugh? That's exactly what happened to me, Sarah Thompson, and I turned that pain into the strength to take back my life. Want to know how I did it? The scent of pumpkin pie filled my kitchen in our Atlanta suburban home, the kind of place with a small porch and a big oak tree out front. Thanksgiving was just days away, that time when American families come together, and I was prepping for it, humming softly. This house, our two-story dream, was the heart of the 12 years I'd spent with Mike. I'm Sarah, 42, an accountant who worked overtime to pay off that mortgage, believing we were building a future together. Then my phone buzzed. I picked it up, expecting Mike to check in from his business trip. Instead, his voice came through, cold and smug. "Sarah, I'm divorcing you. I sold the house, and Jessica and I are starting over." He laughed, a sharp, cruel sound, like I was some kind of joke. Jessica, that name hit like a punch. I'd suspected her. The coworker always popping up in Mike's Instagram posts, but hearing him toss her name so casually, like I was the outsider, made my chest tighten. I gripped the phone, forcing my voice to stay steady. "What did you do?" "Mike." My world was crumbling, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going to let him steal this house, my American dream, without a fight. The phone burned in my hand, Mike's mocking laugh clawing at my thoughts. I stood in our Atlanta kitchen, the faint scent of cinnamon lingering from the oven. Thanksgiving was days away, and I'd been prepping our suburban home 2 stories. A creaky porch swing, an oak tree blazing gold in the fall light for it. This house was my everything, the heart of a life I'd built with Mike, scraping by with late-night accounting shifts to pay off the mortgage. But his voice, cold and smug, had just shattered it all. "I'm divorcing you. Sarah, I sold the house. Jessica and I are starting over." He laughed, sharp and cruel, like I was nothing. Jessica, his coworker. All glossy Instagram smiles had been a nagging suspicion, but hearing her name, like I was the outsider, burned deep. I sank into a chair, heart racing. Mike was always the charmer, spinning promises he'd never keep. Years ago, we'd laughed under these kitchen lights, dreaming of a future. But lately, his business trips dragged on. His phone stayed locked, and those Instagram shots Jessica leaning too close haunted me. I'd brushed it off, swallowing doubts under pressure from his mom, Linda, who'd lecture me on keeping the family strong. Now, I saw the truth. Then it clicked: the house. Last spring, we'd refinanced. My credit was better, so I'd quietly put the deed in my name. Mike, too distracted to care, signed without looking. His arrogance was my edge. I dialed Emily Carter, my lawyer and old college friend. "Mike says he sold the house," I said, voice steady despite the storm inside. "Can he?" Emily's chuckle was fierce. "He can't sell what's yours. Sarah, that deed's yours alone. If he's pocketed any cash, he's facing fraud." My pulse surged, not fear, but fire. This house, my American dream, held every sacrifice I'd made. Mike thought he'd outplayed me, but he'd misjudged who he was dealing with. Thanksgiving was coming, and I'd fight to keep my place at this table. The kitchen clock ticked louder than ever, each second a reminder that Mike thought he'd won. His voice smug, laughing, saying he'd sold our Atlanta home still rang in my ears. But I wasn't the same woman who'd stood frozen just days ago. That Sarah, the one who'd ignored his late nights and Jessica's Instagram smirks, was gone. In her place was someone new, someone who'd remembered the deed to this suburban 2-story, with its creaky porch swing and golden oak tree, was mine alone. Emily Carter, my lawyer and college friend, had confirmed it. Mike's sale was a sham, and if he'd taken a cent, he was staring down fraud. Thanksgiving loomed, and I'd be damned if I let him and Jessica carve up my American dream like some holiday turkey. I started moving fast. Emily drafted a letter to Mike, laying out the truth: the house was mine, the sale was illegal. And he'd better not spend a dime of any deposit. I called the buyers a young couple dreaming of their first home, just like I had 12 years ago. Their voices cracked with anger when I explained Mike's lie. We trusted him, the wife said, her words heavy with betrayal. They agreed to cancel the deal and demanded their money back. I hung up, my hands shaking, not with fear, but with a fire I hadn't felt in years. This house wasn't just walls and a mortgage I'd slaved to pay. It was my proof that I'd built something real, something Mike couldn't touch. Then I did something bold. I drove to the hardware store, bought new locks, and spent the afternoon changing every door. The clank of the deadbolt sliding into place felt like a declaration this was my home, and Mike wasn't welcome anymore. I stood on the porch, the fall air crisp, and for the first time, I felt like I was standing taller. But Mike wasn't done. That evening, he stormed up the driveway, his face red, pounding on the door like it was still his. "Sarah, open this damn door," he shouted, his voice echoing through the quiet neighborhood. "This is my house, too. You can't do this." I opened the door just a crack. The new chain lock taut between us and met his glare. "It's not yours." "Mike," I said, my voice low but steady. "You signed it away last spring. Remember when you were too busy to read the papers, I slid the deed through the gap," watching his eyes widen as he scanned it. For a moment, he was silent. Then he exploded. "You think you're so smart I'll sue you? Sarah, I've already spent the deposit on a condo for Jessica. You're screwing us over." I didn't flinch. "You screwed yourself." "Mike, that money's not yours, and the buyers want it back. Keep it, and you're looking at jail." His jaw tightened, but I saw something new in his eyes, panic. He wasn't the slick salesman anymore. He was a man caught in his own trap. Then came Linda, his mother. The next morning, my phone lit up with her name. "Sarah, how could you?" she snapped, her southern drawl thick with judgment. "Mike's my boy, and you're tearing him apart. A good wife doesn't kick her husband out, she fixes things." I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Linda had always preached family values, cornering me at every holiday to stand by your man. But I was done. "Linda," I said, my voice sharp, "your boy sold my home behind my back and laughed about it. He broke this family, not me." She gasped, then hung up. But I knew she wasn't finished. The real shock came that night. I was washing dishes when headlights swept across the driveway. Mike was back, but not alone. Our elderly neighbors, the Thompsons, good old Southern folks who'd bring us peach cobbler every summer, called me. "Sarah, that husband of yours is trying to break in." "Mr. Thompson whispered. I peeked out and saw Mike fumbling with a crowbar at the back door. My heart pounded, but I dialed 911. The police arrived in minutes, their lights flashing red and blue. Mike tried to charm them, claiming it was his house, but I handed over the deed. The officer, a gruff man with a thick Georgia accent, shook his head. "Sir, you need to leave. Now." Mike's shoulders slumped as he was escorted away, the crowbar clattering to the ground. I stood on the porch, watching the police car disappear, the oak tree swaying in the night breeze. My neighbors waved, their faces full of concern and support. I waved back, tears stinging my eyes not from sadness, but from the weight of what I'd done. Mike had tried to steal everything: my home, my security, my dignity, but I'd fought back. Linda's words, Mike's threats, even that crowbar couldn't break me. Thanksgiving was coming, and I was ready to carve out a new life, one where I called the shots. But I knew Mike wouldn't go quietly, and I braced myself for whatever he'd try next. The air in my Atlanta home felt heavier now, like the calm before a storm. Thanksgiving was creeping closer, but the warmth of the season couldn't touch the fire burning inside me. Mike's crowbar stunt trying to break into my house. My sanctuary had left me shaken but stronger. The deed to this suburban two-story, with its creaky porch swing and golden oak tree, was my shield, and Emily Carter, my lawyer, was my sword. She'd already nullified Mike's illegal sale. And the buyers, A young couple betrayed by his lies were ready to back me. But Mike wasn't the type to slink away. He'd always played the charmer, the guy who thought he could talk his way out of anything. I knew he'd come back swinging, and I was ready. It started with a text from Emily the next morning. Brace yourself. Sarah, Mike's emailing the buyers, claiming you're the one scamming them. My stomach twisted. He was desperate, trying to flip the script. I called Emily, my voice tight. He's lying to save himself, she said, her tone fierce. We've got the deed, the paperwork, everything. He's digging his own grave. She sent a cease and desist letter to Mike, warning him of slander and fraud charges. I paced the kitchen, the same one where I'd once baked pies for him, and felt a surge of defiance. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about proving I wasn't the naive wife he thought he'd played. Then came the real blow. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Linda, Mike's mom, her voice dripping with venom. Sarah, you're destroying my son, she hissed. You've humiliated him, locked him out of his own home. I'm coming over with my church group tonight. We're gonna pray for you to see sense. For the sake of family, I froze. Linda's Southern Baptist crew was no joke tight-knit, judgmental, the kind who'd show up with casseroles and Bible verses to fix a wayward wife. Linda, I said, my voice low. Your son sold my house behind my back and laughed about it. Don't talk to me about family. She scoffed and hung up, but her words lingered like a threat. By evening, the storm hit. I was reviewing Emily's legal docs when headlights flooded the driveway. Mike stormed up, Jessica at his side, her designer purse glinting under the porch light. Behind them, Linda and a half-dozen church ladies clutched their purses and prayer books, their faces set like they were marching into battle. Mike pounded on the door. Sarah, open up. We're settling this now. Jessica, all smug confidence, was already snapping selfies, probably captioning them new home vibes for Instagram. My heart raced, but I grabbed the deed and flung the door open, the chain lock still in place. Settle what? Mike, I snapped, holding up the deed. This house is mine. You signed it away. Remember, your sale is void, and the buyers know it. His eyes narrowed, but Jessica stepped forward, her voice sharp. Mike said this was his house, that he sold it for us. She turned to him, her perfect makeup cracking with doubt. You said you had the money, Mike stammered. It's complicated. Jess, I'll fix it. But I cut in, my voice steady as steel. It's not complicated. You lied to her. Mike, you lied to everyone. That deposit you spent, it's fraud. And Emily's ready to bury you in court. Jessica's face fell. She clutched her purse, glaring at Mike. You told me you had this handled. Fraud. Are you serious? Before he could answer, she spun on her heels, her boots clicking down the driveway as she muttered, I'm not going down with you. The church ladies gasped, their prayer books forgotten. Linda, red-faced, pushed forward. Sarah, this is a disgrace. It's Thanksgiving time for forgiveness, not vengeance. Let Mike back in, or you'll answer to God. The ladies nodded, murmuring amen, their eyes boring into me. I took a deep breath, the fall air sharp in my lungs. Linda, forgiveness is for those who earn it. Mike didn't just betray me. He tried to steal my home, my life, and you, I said, turning to the church group. You think praying will fix this? Pray for him, because he's the one who needs it. The ladies froze, stunned by my defiance. Linda's mouth opened, but no words came. Mike, alone now, tried one last plea. Sarah, we had 12 years. Don't do this. I'll lose everything. His voice cracked, but I saw the same manipulative glint in his eyes. You lost me the moment you laughed on that phone call, I said, my voice trembling with rage and resolve. You thought you could break me, Mike, but you're the one breaking now. I slammed the door, the lock clicking like a gavel. Outside, Linda's group whispered, their footsteps fading. Mike shouted something, but I didn't care. I leaned against the door, tears streaming down my face, not for him, but for the woman I'd been, the one who'd let him dim her light for so long. The oak tree swayed outside, its leaves catching the moonlight. My neighbors, the Thompsons, peeked out, their porch light a quiet show of support. Thanksgiving was days away, and I knew Mike and Linda weren't done, but I'd faced them down Jessica, the church brigade, all of it, and I was still standing. This house, my American dream, was mine, and I was ready for whatever came next, because I wasn't just fighting for a house, I was fighting for me. The silence in my Atlanta home was deafening after Mike, Jessica, and Linda's church brigade stormed off. The porch swing creaked faintly outside, the golden oak tree casting long shadows in the moonlight. Thanksgiving was just days away, but the holiday's promise of gratitude felt distant. I'd faced them all, Mike's lies, Jessica's smug Instagram dreams, Linda's Bible-thumping pressure, and I'd won. The deed to this suburban two-story, my American dream, was still mine, backed by Emily Carter's legal firepower. But victory didn't feel like triumph yet. It felt raw, like a wound that hadn't healed. Mike's desperate plea, "Sarah, I'll lose everything," lingered, not because I pitied him, but because it reminded me of the woman I'd been, the one who'd let his charm and his mother's lectures cage her for 12 years. That woman was gone, and I was ready to bury her for good. Morning brought a new fight. Emily called, her voice brisk. Mike's emailing sob stories to the buyers, begging them not to sue. He's also posted on Facebook, painting you as the villain who stole his house. My blood boiled. Mike, ever the salesman, was spinning lies to save his skin, dragging my name through the mud. I checked his post. Sarah locked me out of our family home. I'm heartbroken. Comments from his buddies piled on, calling me cold, selfish. My hands shook, but I didn't cry. Instead, I called Emily. "He's slandering me," I said, my voice sharp. "What's next?" She was already on it. "We're sending a defamation notice," she said. "He's got no proof, and we've got the deed. Keep your head high. Sarah, he's flailing." I decided to hit back in my own way. I met the buyers, a young couple, the Wilsons, at a coffee shop down the street. Their faces were tired. Their trust in Mike shattered. "We thought he was legit," Mrs. Wilson said, her voice soft. "We put our savings into that deposit." I slid a folder across the table, copies of the deed, the voided sale contract, Emily's legal letters. "This is my home," I said, my voice steady. "Mike lied to you, just like he lied to me. I'll make sure you get your money back." They nodded, gratitude in their eyes. Walking out, I felt lighter. I wasn't just fighting for me. I was righting Mike's wrongs. Back home, I faced the house. It still held ghosts of Mike, his old recliner, the tacky golf trophies he loved. I called my friend Emily, not the lawyer, but my high school pal, the one who'd always seen through Mike's act. She showed up with pizza, wine, and a take-no-prisoners attitude. "Let's purge this place," she said, grinning. We hauled his stuff to the garage, trophies, clothes, even the framed photo of us at Tybee Island, smiling like we'd last forever. I didn't linger on it, I boxed it up. We laughed, cried, and blasted Dolly Parton's Jolene, singing louder than the neighbors probably liked. The house felt cleaner, not just from his junk, but from his shadow. I painted the living room a soft blue, hung a photo of my mom and sister, and stood back. This wasn't Mike's home anymore. It was mine. Thanksgiving arrived, and I hosted a small dinner, not the big family affair Linda always demanded, but a real one. Emily came, along with the Thompsons, our neighbors who'd called the cops on Mike. We ate turkey, cornbread, and my slightly burnt pumpkin pie, laughing over stories of resilience. Mr. Thompson raised a glass to Sarah, who fought like hell and won. I smiled, tears welling, not from pain, but from pride. This table, this home, was my victory. Mike tried one last move, A letter arrived, handwritten, his scrawl shaky. "Sarah, I messed up. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I read it, then tossed it in the trash. He wasn't sorry. He was scared. Emily had already filed the divorce papers, and the buyers had their money back. No thanks to him. His Facebook post was down, buried under a flood of comments from folks who'd heard the real story. Linda called once, her voice softer, but I let it go to voicemail. I didn't need her guilt trips anymore. I started a blog that week sharing my story. Messages poured in from women mothers, wives, survivors who'd faced their own mics. "You gave me courage," one wrote. I sat on my couch, the city lights twinkling outside, and felt something new: purpose. This house, with its blue walls and creaky swing, wasn't just my refuge. It was my proof that I could rebuild. Mike had laughed, thinking he'd broken me, but he'd only set me free. Thanksgiving had come, and I wasn't just grateful for this home. I was grateful for the woman I'd become, the one who'd fought, cried, and risen stronger than ever. The sage green walls of my Atlanta home glowed softly in the morning light, the creaky porch swing swaying outside as the golden oak tree stood tall. A quiet witness to my transformation. Thanksgiving had come and gone, leaving behind a warmth I hadn't felt in years, not just from the turkey and laughter around my table, but from the fire I'd found within. Mike was gone, his lies buried under the weight of my deed and Emily Carter's legal hammer. The buyers he'd swindled were made whole. His Facebook sob story had crumbled, and even Linda's judgmental calls had stopped. This suburban two-story, my American dream, was mine, but the real victory was bigger. Sarah, wasn't just the accountant who'd fought for her home. I was a woman who'd shattered the chains of 12 years of betrayal and soared. Mike's mocking laugh. I sold the house. Sarah had tried to break me, but it had built me instead. I stood in my living room, the space now alive with my touch photos of my mom and sister, a watercolor of the Atlanta skyline, a throw blanket I'd picked because it made me smile, the ghosts of Mike, his recliner. His tacky trophies were long gone, boxed up with my friend Emily's help as we'd danced to Reba McEntire. But it wasn't just the house I'd reclaimed. That night, inspired by the women who'd messaged me after my story spread, I'd started reclaiming home, a blog pouring out my journey, the shock of Mike's call, the fight for my deed, the moment I slammed the door on him and Linda's church brigade. I wrote raw, unfiltered, expecting maybe a few readers. Instead, the response was a tidal wave. Women divorcees, mothers, survivors flooded my inbox. "You gave me the strength to leave," one wrote. "I'm fighting for my own home because of you," said another. Each story stitched my heart back together, not with the fragile threads of my old life, but with something stronger. The blog exploded. Within weeks, it wasn't just a corner of the internet, it was a movement. I got an email from a local Atlanta radio station, inviting me to share my story on air. My hands shook as I spoke into the mic, but my voice didn't waver. Listeners called in, their voices cracking with gratitude, sharing their own battles with betrayal. The segment went viral, and soon, a national women's magazine reached out for a feature. Sarah Thompson, the woman who took back her home and her power. The headline read. I stared at it, tears blurring the words, not because I was sad, but because I barely recognized the woman I'd become. Invitations poured in podcasts, community centers, even a TEDx talk in Savannah. I stood on stages, looking into eyes that mirrored my own hurt, but hopeful, and told them, "Your pain is not your end, it's your beginning." Reclaiming Home grew into a platform. I launched a podcast, interviewing women who'd fought their own Mike's men who'd tried to steal their dreams, their dignity. Downloads soared into the thousands, then tens of thousands. Sponsors knocked. offering deals I'd never imagined as an accountant crunching numbers in a cubicle. I hired a small team, mostly women who'd found my blog, and we turned Reclaiming Home into a nonprofit, funding legal aid for women facing divorce or property disputes. At our first fundraiser, held in an Atlanta ballroom, I watched women in evening gowns and jeans alike raise glasses to resilience. One guest, a single mom who'd escaped an abusive marriage, hugged me and whispered, "Your story saved my life." I cried then, not from weakness, but from the weight of purpose. Mike faded into a footnote. Emily finalized the divorce, and he slunk away. No more letters or pleas. I heard through a mutual friend he'd moved to a cramped apartment. Jessica long gone. Linda sent a Christmas card, her handwriting stiff, but I didn't open it. They were my past. This was my future. I sat on my couch one night, the city lights twinkling outside, my laptop open to an email from a publisher offering a book deal for Reclaiming Home. I smiled, not just at the offer, but at the woman I saw in the reflection of the screen, unbroken, unstoppable. Mike had laughed, thinking he'd erased me, but he'd only ignited me. So, to you listening, I say this. What's your home? Maybe it's a house, a dream, or the spark inside you someone tried to snuff out. Fight for it. You're stronger than you know. Share your story in the comments. I read every one. Hit like, subscribe, and join this community of warriors rebuilding their lives. Because this isn't just my story, it's ours. And together, we're rewriting the ending.